All right, what I just gave you was part 2 of this project that we've been working on. I just wanted to mention this to you. I've said it before. I want to say it one more time. This is the book you're going to be using in full. All right, it's called Murox ASP.NET 4.6 Web Programming with C# 2015. Now, that's way too much to remember. So if you just go out to muroc.com, all right, if you just go out there, you're going to see probably, hopefully yours is going to look exactly like mine does here. If you arrow down under our bestsellers, it's the one that's right here. All right, so arrow down once you get to the site, and I think it's the one in the middle there, Murox ASP.NET 4.6 Web Programming with C# 2015. 6th edition. Now, I don't really care if you decide you want to use Visual Studio 2017 in fall. I'm not going to, as of right now. That may change. I don't know. I haven't looked at it well enough yet. But we're using 2015. I will tell you that probably places that are working with ASP.NET or C#, my guess is well over 90% of them are still using 2015. Because 2017 is brand new, and typically places don't go to a new product until it's fairly stable. And with Microsoft, you never know when something is going to be stable. All right. But what I wanted to show you is if I click on this, it brings up the information about it. Now, if you're interested in, you don't have to do this, but again, I just clicked on the picture of the book, and then when you go down to free downloads, if you want to right now, you can literally go and download the first 2 chapters of the book if you want to take a look at it. All right. The good news is, again, if you look at it, if you want an ebook, it's under $40. If you want the print book, it's $47.60. And if you want a combination of the two, it's only $55. And I think, like I said, the book that you got this past semester was much more expensive than that. All right. I've got my own feelings on that book. I'm going to share them with Evan when I see him tomorrow in St. Louis, and I'll let you know what he says. So, if we look, and again, I don't want to waste time on this, but if we look at the table of contents, we're going to go through all of Section 1. And we're going to go through as much of Section 1. We'll at least have done, by the end of the first week, the first 2 chapters in the book. I guarantee that. In the first chapter of the book, what we do is we talk about what ASP.NET is, and then we look at an existing ASP.NET application. It's a pretty simple application. It's just 1 page. Then in Chapter 2, we take that application that we looked at in Chapter 1. You'll already have a working copy of it. We build it from scratch. All right? And then in Chapter 3, notice we'll talk about HTML, CSS3, and Bootstrap with ASP.NET. We'll concentrate mainly on the Bootstrap part. All right? Then in number 4, or Chapter 4, we learn how to develop a multi-page application. Then in Chapter 5, it's a fairly short chapter, testing and debugging. Then in Section 2, and we'll also go over all of Section 2, the idea is you develop, hopefully, some kind of a comfort zone creating this stuff. All right? Then we go into Section 3, and that's going to be the hallmark of the class. You'll notice that's 7 chapters. And when you notice an introduction to database programming, we'll hit that in about a half an hour because that's what is a field, what is a record, etc. You've had all that stuff. Chapter 13, how to use SQL data sources. That's what we've been doing. Chapter 14, how to use the grid view control. That's what we've been doing. All right. Chapter 15, how to use the details view. We're going to look at that today, and the forum view. Chapter 16, the list view and data pagers. 17 and 18 are probably the hardest 2 chapters in the book. All right. Then the plan, at least right now, is we're not going to go over any of Section 4. There's just not going to be enough time to do it. All right. Again, if you do the math, 25 chapters, in 80 days, that would mean we'd be doing a chapter every 3 days. It's just not going to work. From the last section, we're at least going to go over chapter 25. We may go over chapter 23 depending on where we are for time. But just so you have some kind of an idea. All right. What I plan on doing right now, if you go out to my YouTube channel, you don't have to do that, but I already have lectures from all the chapters in this book. But two things. First of all, it's an older version of the book, and second of all, I did it when I was at Blackhawk. All right. So I'm going to go back and redo all those this summer. That's not going to be my number one priority because we are going to build that website as a class. That's my number one priority. Okay. I also found out, I was hoping, I'd be able to come in here every day during the summer and do all my taping. Ryan's going to be in this room from 8 o'clock a.m. till 2:30 a.m. every day, which isn't a great thing for me. All right. So, you can go next door. Well, Paul's going to be in a class over there from 8 a.m. every day till 2:30. So I've got to talk to Charles and see if he can get me a classroom. All right. I mean, I've got other things I can do. You may or may not know it, but there is, right next to the room next door, there is a real little room. It's very small that they keep a lot of storage in. And I'm thinking of even barricading myself into the storage room, bringing just my computer and a chair in there and taping in there. I don't know how that would work acoustically, so we'll see whether or not that happens. The point is, virtually everything that you'll need for the class I will be adding it as the summer goes on. All right. So, if you brought up the what I had you copy over to your desktops, and again, yours won't look exactly like this. It'll look a little bit off kilter, so to speak, because I tried to change the size on this stuff so it would look a little bit better with the bigger display that we have here. So yours might look a little bit different. You might have to change some stuff around. But there's a couple things I wanted to mention on here, such as, if we look right here, and it doesn't matter which one of these you bring up, it really doesn't. But I'm going to bring up the employees one just because that happens to be the one that's right here. All right, so the one that I've got up is formemployees.cs. Now, it doesn't look like anything big, but one thing you have to realize if you take a look up on the screen here, because you probably don't see this because I don't have it on mine either. But when you look on this right here, there's the details view. And when I click on it, you may or may not notice, I get a smart tag. Don't double click on it because then it opens up a code window. But if you click on the details view, all right, it brings up this smart tag. And if I click on the smart tag, notice what it has. It has some stuff in here that will allow you to enable editing, which is enabled by default, enable adding records, which is enabled by default, enable deleting records, which is enabled by default. Notice the enable column reordering. It's not enabled, but if you just check the box, it becomes enabled. So anything that's there that's checked that you don't want checked, you can just click on it and it's a toggle. It'll turn itself on and off. Then also notice that we've got add columns. So if we wanted to add a new column, we'd be able to do that. We don't. But if we wanted to, we could. And there's also edit columns. Why would you want to use something like edit columns? Well, as an example, if we look at the table that we've been working on, not the Acme one, but the other one, we've got that with that, whatever the heck it's called. In our sales order example, all right? In fact, we can even use the Acme one. Yeah. If you remember, for the employees, we came in there and we added this. If we wanted that particular column to display on screen and we wanted it to display with dollars and cents, we could edit that field so that when it displays on screen, it displays in a currency format. All right? Long explanation for something that's, I just wanted you to understand that though. So again, if I went to emp salary, I'd have to go in here. I don't remember which one it is right now, but one of the things that's in here, it might be default cell style. I don't remember. All right? But you can come in here and there's a bunch of stuff you can do with this. All right? Are you going to have to do this? Not this semester, but yeah, next semester we will. All right. So this is what I said here. Again, in that designer, when you clicked, you saw the smart tag, and I will print off this page for you if you're interested in it. But as it says, it's got stuff in there that will enable editing, adding, editing, deleting, and column reordering. Okay? All right. So you've now got the most up-to-date one that we've been working on. All right? That said, close that, please. All right, close it. We're not going to work on it today. I wanted you to have the most up-to-date copy. All right? Now, it's going to be interesting because I basically did squat over the break, all right, at least as far as Rankin work goes. But what we're going to attempt to do right now is we're going to attempt to create this. I want to show you the end product, so to speak. Doesn't look like much, all right? It really doesn't. And when we run the program, it automatically fills everything up for us. Plus, we're able to, if we want to, we're able to go in and add a new record. We can remove a record, all right? So we're going to do that right now. So what I'd like you to do as we start, and again, I've got a handout on this that I'll give out later. But as it says, we're going to now learn another way to connect an application to an existing database. We used the data grid view control last time, and if I called it detail view, I was wrong. The one we just looked at was the data grid view. We've looked at the detail view a little bit, but not really in any depth at all. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come in and we're going to work with this. Now, we did not work with the details view before. Am I correct? Okay. So what I'd like you to do is take your original project that had nothing in it, your copy of your original project, which is probably called Acme Test. Take that and copy it to Acme Test 3. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to do a copy today. We're going to do another one tomorrow. We're going to do another one Wednesday. We're going to do another one Thursday. Then we're done with this. Friday, again, I think, I could be wrong, but I think we're going to lose half of a class period again because to my knowledge, we're going to have the middle schoolers in for 2 sessions. Now, I'll have to check on that to see if that's changed at all. If it has changed and they don't come at all, it wouldn't bother me any. All right, but we'll see how it works. Okay, and what we're going to do today is we're going to go over this. Then we're going to, after we get done with this at around 10 or so, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. I'm going to ask you to create 2 queries. All right, from what I've got from some of the emails and stuff that I got from people over the break, some people are still struggling with doing some of this stuff. So I'm going to ask you to try to do 2 different queries. All right, one on the Acme database and one on the sales order example database. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on those. All right, then afterwards, I'm going to go over how they're done. And I'm going to ask that while I'm going over it, I'm going to give you a hard copy of the results. So rather than sitting there and typing like a bat out of hell, I don't want you to do that. I'd rather have you listen as I go through it and try to explain it. You don't have to worry about keying it in because I'll give you a hard copy with the before and after pictures in it. All right? I've got the first query done. The second one I'll do during the break, or I'll try to finish it up during the break. All right? I started it too late and didn't get it all done. All right. So, as I said, we started this last week. We created our original Acme test where we created that database from scratch. We populated the table data, but as it says, more often, programmers must create applications that connect to existing databases. If you go to work for a company that's a small company, you might wear every hat there is. In other words, if you're doing ASP.NET and C#, you might be a programmer, you might be a web designer, you might be a web developer, you might be a database person, you might do it all. If you work for a bigger company, you might have a very refined thing that you do. I don't know the place that you're going to, I mean how big it is, but if it's a big company, there might be, somebody or some group of people, all they do is the database stuff, etc. All right. Well, the point is, with looking at that, you're not always going to have time to sit there and, okay, how is this database going to be done? So sit there and design the database, then create the database, and then populate the database with data. It might be that you need to get something up and out to a customer by the end of the week. So there very well might be another department or people or person that does that for you, and that's what they're talking about here. All right, so we did that where we started from scratch in the first one. Then in the next one, I've got the second tutorial that we did, we used the data grid view to connect to the database that we created last time. Now I put here, the data grid view lets you look at all records. Well, it brought it up in what looks like a spreadsheet. Now we could see all the records because we had 3 tables. One of the tables had 6 records. The second table, I believe, also had 6 records. And the third one only had 12 records. But if we had hundreds of employees, of course, you can't see all of them on the screen at once. All right, but the idea is you've got a scrollable view where you can look at everything. All right, so that's what we've done so far. In this example, in this next tutorial, as it says, we're going to create an application and connect it to a database using a details view. A details view, as mentioned, is a set of individual controls bound to the columns in a single row. Rather than showing them at once, it shows them a record at a time. That's what I just ran for you. That's what I just showed you. We're not going to do a whole boatload of stuff today. We're going to do that. All right? And after we get done with that, unless it's way too late, we're going to take a break. All right? And then we're going to come back and we're going to look at those 2 queries. Now, out of the 9 of you in here, my guess is approximately 6 of you have turned in that first assignment. It was due already last Friday. All right? If it's not in by 12 noon today, this isn't a threat. If you don't give me what you have by 12 noon, I'm going to take for granted you're not turning it in. Because I'm planning on grading those this afternoon. So it'd be much better for you to email me whatever you have, even if it's not complete, as opposed to having me grade nothing. Now, a couple of you still did not turn in the homework for Chapter 13 or Chapter 14. That's been reflected in your grade because I gave you a 0 on it. All right? And it may have even taken you from an A to a B plus or whatever. Everything other than the first worksheet has been graded. And like I said, I plan on starting to grade the first worksheet today. And the reason that I want you to hand them in by today is I'm going to go over them tomorrow. If I get them all graded tonight, we'll go over them tomorrow between 10 and 12. If I don't get them all graded tonight, then we'll do it Wednesday. All right, but one or the other by the end of this week. No, I'm not giving you a hard copy, and I am going to put the answers up there. The only thing is I don't have time. If I put them up there, if you're a slow typist, I don't have 3 class periods that we can go over these. So I'm going to put them up there, and whether you write them down, whether you key them in, no matter what you do whatever it is you have to do. But I want to go over all 25 of them in a couple hours. All right? And we'll do the same thing next week. Because remember, next Monday, a week from today, that second worksheet is due. All right? And I'll give you some time Monday to work on it. In fact, if we get everything done this week that I want to get done, there'll be no lectures next week. there'll be no lectures the following week. What I plan on giving you next week is your last assignment. It'll be a 2-part assignment. I'll give it to you on Monday, both parts. And you'll have the next 2 weeks to both work on that, finish up anything else you have to finish up, plus you can start on and or finish your portfolios. All right. Again, hopefully you realize this. What is it, 3 weeks now, I think? From Wednesday, we're done. So we've got all this week, all next week, all the following week, and 3 days. All right, so if you include today, that's 18 days. All right, so I had you already go over and copy that to Acme Test 3. I'm going to do the same thing, even though I've already got it Acme Test 3 here. I'm going to take that and call it old or something like that. All right. Now I'm going to go back to my original Acme test, which looks pretty much just like yours does, and I'm going to copy it out here. All right. Then I'm going to change the name on it from Acme Test to Acme Test 3. And hopefully I've mentioned this before, but I just want you to realize there is absolutely nothing wrong with copying files like that. But if you look on the screen here, this says Acme Test 3, but if I open it, the inner files do not change. All right, just the outside one changes, and that's okay. I'm not concerned with that. But if I bring this one up right now, it has virtually nothing in it. There's the form, okay? So that's what I've got. That's what you should have. All right, so we did step 1, okay? The next thing I ask you to do, just for some consistency's sake, is to go over to your form right here and rename this, all right? Because it's called Form 1, and that's just a crummy name right there. So I'm going to right mouse click on it. You should always, when you're going to, if you look up on the screen here, you may or may not have realized this, that when you've got this file right here, like form1.cs and the arrow, notice there's a bunch of other files. All right? But you should always get used to when you want to rename, just right mouse click on the name, choose rename, and I'm going to call this Form Startup, and hit enter. And you'll notice that when I do that, if you look up on the screen here, it renamed these two right here. Well, why didn't it rename the last one? Well, I'm going to come back up here because I'd named that Form Acme. So I'm going to rename that one also Form Startup. All right? And now they're all changed. Did I do that too fast? All right, you should just get used to renaming things right away. I didn't do it. But since we're starting with virtually a blank form, there's no problem doing it like this. I'm going to keep saying this to you, and you're going to keep hearing it next semester. That is, you put your controls on the screen, you rename the controls, then you add the code. All right? There are ways that you can do it afterwards. You can do what's called refactor your stuff afterwards, where you change the name and it'll change it everywhere for you. Again, the difference, when you do that, when you refactor and you choose, then you're letting the software make sure everything is correct for you. If you just do it this way, where you create things and boom, you rename them right away, then you're in charge. All right? I don't know if it's ever happened, but it is not unfathomable to think that possibly, even if you go afterwards and do one of those refactor things, that somehow the software could screw up and not rename something. That could end up causing some trouble down the road. I don't want that to happen to anybody. All right, so we've done step 1, not that it was very much. Let's jump into step 2. So we're going to click Project on the Visual Studio menu bar and choose Add New Data Source, just like we've been doing. So Project and Add New Data Source. This shouldn't be anything new now. We've done this before. All right? When you do this, we're basically just going to step through everything that's in here. In other words, what we'll be doing this semester and all of next semester, except when we get to like chapters 17 and 18, we'll always be choosing database right here. I think it's either chapter 17 or chapter 18 of your next book goes through object data sources. All right. So we want database, and that's the default, so we click again. All right. Again, very hard to screw this one up because it's the only thing that's in there. So yes, we want data set, and we click again. Now, I'm asking, and if yours doesn't, it's okay. With what you see on the screen right now, if this looks like your screen, how many people do not have anything in here? All right, if you don't, then you have to go find it. So in other words, if you don't, you've got to click where it says new connection. Or first you can check here, all right, and if it doesn't have anything, then click where it says new connection. And it'll bring this up. All right. Once this is up, you should always make sure it says Microsoft SQL Server Database File, SQL Client. If it says something other than that, you click the change button and you choose that one. All right. My guess is, even with yours, Tiffany, that it said that already. So if it does, now it says database file. Well, you can't just type it in. It needs to know where to get it from. So you click browse. All right, once you click browse, I don't know where it's going to bring you up in here. So I don't know exactly where yours is. But you've got to find the project that you're working on right now. Again, whether it's on the desktop, whether it's someplace else. Once you find that folder on the project, once you open it, you should see this, acme.mdf. All right. And then once you take that and you choose it and you click open, it should put that in there for you. You can even test it then to make sure by clicking test connection. It should come back and look like this. If you've got all that, then it's good. That's where you should be. All right, so if you click OK and you click OK again, now hopefully it is in here. All right. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit last time. You don't have to do this. This is your connection string. What's important about the connection string? A couple things. First of all, it's telling us what our local, this right here, just so you know, this thing right there. Yours may not look exactly the same, or it might. That's your local database server. So that's what it's using on this machine. If you were hooked up where, let's assume Ethan works for MasterCard, all right? If you were hooking up to MasterCard's database, the actual database, it wouldn't be that, all right? Because it says local, which means your machine. So it would be some other path. All right. Then what we're saying here is this whole thing right here, this thing, all of that, that's what we're about to attach to it. And mine is under users, rank and desktop, C#, incomplete, Acme Test 2, Acme Test 2. The key thing is this. You all should have that because it says we're using the Acme database. That's how we're connecting. We're telling it we want Microsoft to bring in its own security for us, all right? And we're also telling it that if we cannot connect within 30 seconds, to drop the connection, all right? That's what all of that stuff means. If you want more on it, you know, you can go and Google anything that's in there. That's probably all that you'd ever need to know. All right, so if you've got all this, we'll click next again. All right, and it says the connection you selected uses a local data file that is not in the current project. Now, you may not have gotten this. Probably Tiffany did, all right, but you may or may not have gotten this. So it says, if you copy the data to your project, it will be copied to the outputs directory each time you run the application. You know what, just so we're all the same, in case you didn't get it, I'll type in no. All right. So now it says, fine. We have to make the connection string. The connection string is the database connection string. It's not the table connection string, it's what database we're connecting to. So Acme connection string is fine. So again, I'm just going through it. All right. Now it says, well, what do you want to do? Well, we're going to want to, again, go over to tables and go over to departments. Since we're choosing departments for the data that we're grabbing, we're going to change the name of this. So rather than using Acme data set, we're going to call this departments data set. We've done this before. All right. I'm just literally trying to step through it slowly, and I'm not saying it's going to totally make sense to you. But the more often you do it, the more practice you get with it, the more comfortable, ideally, you are with it. All right? Yes?
If we already did this, will it stop us from doing it again, just in case?
I don't think so. Okay.
Is there a way to check if we already have it there?
Is there a way to check? Well, I guess the main way to check would be to go back, cancel out of this, and run the program.
Because under my data sources, I already have a department's data set, so does that mean I already have it?
All of it depends on how far you were in the original project when you copied it. All right, that's why I don't know how to answer the question. Okay. All right, so we've gone to departments, we changed it to departments data set, and now we can click finish. And nothing looks any different, except when you look up on the screen here, we now have a bunch of stuff that's in here. We didn't have this stuff before. All right? We've got this departments data set XSD. And you don't have to do it, but I just double clicked on it. Okay? And it's showing us what's in there. And XSD, if you care, stands for XML schema definition. So what it's showing us is what we have in here is we have two fields, okay? And we've also got one method that's associated with it. Again, not that you have to care about that. We've got a data set designer. That's another one of these files that gets filled in with a bunch of stuff that we really should not, we can look at, but we should never touch. If you look at the stuff that's right here, you don't have to bring yours up, but if you look on the screen here, this stuff especially, this is setting up and it's linking up the schema of the database with the controls that you've got here. If you want to screw up your project, the easiest way to do it is to start jacking with this file. I don't know why you'd ever want to do that, but occasionally, all right, you may take a look at the file or whatever. Just make sure you don't make changes to it. That's all. All right, we've got this thing in here that's called the data set. And you look, there's nothing in there because we haven't done anything yet. We're going to in just a bit. And we've got this XSC and this XSS. I'm not even sure exactly everything those do. All right? But again, they're files that you should not ever have to jack with. All I wanted to tell you was when we did this, it built a bunch of stuff for us. All right, that's the important thing. All right, let's go a little further and then we'll take a break. So we went through here, we went through all the stuff here. We made sure data set was connected. All right. And let's see. Data connection. Yeah, we did that. We did that. We did this. We did this. You should another dialog box. That should have said C, another dialog box. Yeah, we did that. We did that. You know, and there's only 15 steps in here, and we're already on step 10. Okay, let's do step 11, and then we'll take a break. All right, so it says here, the configuration wizard should now appear, expand the thing and select departments. We did that. I guess we've done all this. So this is what we've done up till this point. All right. We added the acme.mdf database as our data source, and we created the data set component that we called departments data set. All right. So that was enough to go through quickly like this. So rather than jumping into the next part, which is probably going to take a half an hour or so, let's take a break. It's 8:56. Let's come back at 9:10, please.